Good day again, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of this week's show, ND Bass, and here we go again. I am Donald Patterson, your host. As always, thanks go out to Fish Bum Outfitters, Carrot Sticks Rods, Southern Yankee Baits, War Dog Lures, Northern Michigan Outfitters, Hooked on Canadian Angling, and most importantly, my wife and my son. It's been another eventful week. I had a couple topics I wanted to possibly touch on, but after having conversations with a few friends of mine here in New Brunswick and also in other parts of the country, something I believe I discussed a few months ago, I've got to come back to it again. It's something that really gets on my nerves, and hopefully it bothers all of you as bad as it bothers me. And that is what appears to be the rash of, I don't want to flat out say cheating, but cheating attempts and cheating accusations that seem to be plaguing the bass fishing community this season. There were some accusations made at a tournament here in New Brunswick a few weeks ago, which turned out to be false, luckily. But there's been cases, I know the FLW Canada event had an incident to deal with. They were getting involved in polygraph testing. There's just been so much over the last few months that I just kind of felt the need to touch on it again. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand fully there is a lot of money on the line in some of these events. And I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I don't want anybody to think that I'm making unfounded accusations. This broadcast, this recording is not about making any accusations whatsoever. What I want to talk about is more what are our responsibilities as anglers if we think something is happening. What do we do? How do we deal with it? Because it's getting to the point we can no longer turn a blind eye to, oh, well, it didn't look right, but I'm not sure. Well, yes, I understand that you don't want to get involved, you don't want to make an accusation if you're not sure. But at the same time, if something doesn't look right, bring it to somebody's attention. Let somebody investigate it. Let somebody dig into it. I'll be the first to tell you that I don't like losing, but anytime I hit the water, I'm fully prepared to lose. That goes without saying, because nobody is going to win every event they enter. So when you hit the water, you have to be fully prepared to lose. And I don't mind losing fairly. But if I find out that somebody is taking my money, the money from my friends, and fellow competitors through dishonest means, that I mind. So what do you do? In all honesty, what do you do? Because there's so many different, the laundry baskets, caging the fish seems to be a popular, as much as I hate to say any method of cheating is popular, but that seems to be becoming one of the most popular methods of securing fish to pick up later and weigh in at a later date. What do you do? Well, obviously, if you catch the person red-handed, well, that makes it easy. Document it. There's very few people that don't have a phone of some sort that has the ability to take pictures and video. Pick up your phone. I'm not one that's going to encourage you to pick up your phone during a tournament. But in a case like this, pick up your phone. Record some video, snap some pictures, whatever you need to do to properly document what you have discovered. And then make sure you report it to your tournament director or to the executive of the club or association, whatever governing body there is over the tournament that you're fishing. And have it dealt with. Those are not the type of people we need in our sport. Yes, I want our sport to grow, and I want to see numbers. I want to see more and more boats on the water every time we go out. But that is the one time I will flat out say, we don't want those type of people in our sport. It's no different than any other sport. If someone is cheating, do you think that, whether it be a NASCAR race, a hockey game, a basketball game, a football game, if someone is cheating, do you think the other competitors want that person there putting a black mark on their sport? Well, we don't want it either. And I just cannot wrap my head around the ethics or morals or lack thereof displayed by some individuals. It like I said, folks, it really gets under my skin, and I'm having a hard time choosing my words in such a way that I'm not using the words that are actually popping into my head, because I try to keep the language on this show, family friendly, so to speak. But any of you who know me and know me well can probably insert the necessary words to properly convey what I'm thinking and feeling right now as I discuss this subject. There's no place for it. And I don't care whether you're in a club tournament with $500 on the line or a bigger event with $5,000 or $15,000 or $50,000 on the line. There's no place for it. When we're out on the water, our tournament officials cannot be everywhere at once. So in a sense, our sport is self-governing. So it's our responsibility as competitors, I'm not saying to spy on other anglers, but be aware of what's going on around you. That's the only way we're going to be able to get this stuff out of the sport. Because not every tournament has the resources to put cameras on every boat, to put scrutineers or marshals on every boat. The resources just aren't there. So we have to police ourselves. And you've got to, unfortunately, and it's not just involved in the sport, we live in a society where people turn a blind eye. I don't want to get involved. Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff a person doesn't want to get involved in. But if it has to do with the integrity of our sport, someone has to get involved. If someone doesn't file that complaint, if somebody doesn't make that report to the tournament director, then these people are going to be able to continue doing what they do with no regard for everybody else and all the honest competitors out there. And don't get me wrong, folks, the majority of us are honest competitors. I'll give you a prime example. How long has it been? 3 weeks ago, roughly. We were fishing the NBSFA event out of Oromocto, and my partner and I slid into a spot, heavy current running. There was a gentleman and 2 kids fishing from shore. And that gentleman hooked into, now he had just a cheap mechanical scale. He hooked into, by his scale, a 5-pound smallmouth. And it was a nice fish. And Jason and I were having a rough day. We weren't getting fish. We weren't getting the bites we wanted. And this gentleman, fishing with a technique we're not able to use during a tournament, he was using live bait and throwing about a 3-ounce weight to drop to the bottom in this heavy current. Anyways, neither here nor there. He caught the fish, we didn't. He turned around from shore, looked at us, and said, "You guys are fishing in the tournament, aren't you?" To which we responded, "Yes." He held the fish up and said, "Do you want it?" There wasn't another boat in sight. And some guys, unfortunately, would have pulled right over and taken that fish, and whether they paid for it or he just gave it to them, it doesn't really matter how they came about acquiring it. They would have acquired that fish without actually catching it themselves. I couldn't do it. Jason and I couldn't do it. We looked at each other and we looked at him and said, no thanks. Now, if I had known what he was going to do next, I would have taken it from him long enough to release it, because he turned around and took that 5-pound smallmouth, which would be a 20-year-old fish in New Brunswick waters, and proceeded to kill it, which, don't get me wrong, he's well within his rights legally to retain some bass. I just don't like seeing people keep stuff that size. But that's a topic for another day. But we just could not do it. Would that fish have won us the tournament? No. Would it have won us the big fish for the day? Oh, heck yes. And actually, our regular season events have wound down. That fish would have won us big fish for the year. But we just couldn't do it. It just, our own morals wouldn't allow us to do something that dishonest. And I can't stress it enough, folks. We need, as anglers, to be proactive on this. If you suspect somebody is doing something outside the rules, whatever it may be, keep an eye on them when the opportunity presents itself, and make sure that your tournament director is aware, or, like I said, your club president or whoever. Make sure somebody with some authority is aware of what you suspect is going on. And trust me, they will very, very quietly keep an eye on something. They're not going to go calling someone out on unfounded accusations, because we don't want to tarnish anybody's reputation. If it turns out that they're an honest individual, just something didn't look right, and it was a misunderstanding, or whatever it was. If they're on the up and up, they're on the up and up. And that's why I'm not talking about any one series, I'm not talking about any one individual or team. This is a very general topic, but it's a topic that affects all tournament anglers. So make sure that you're aware of what's going on around you. Because if there are people like this involved in an event you fish, we need to weed them out. And when I say we, I mean tournament anglers, and I don't care if you're in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Quebec, Ontario, somewhere south of the border. If there are cheaters in your series, in your tournaments, we need to weed them out. So just be aware, folks, I guess is the best advice I can offer. Be aware of what's going on around you, and don't be afraid to get involved. If it turns out that what you saw was legit, if the anglers involved have any sort of respect for the sport, they're going to be okay with, somebody thought they saw me do something. This is what I actually did. They're going to be okay with that. It comes back to the old story. If you have nothing to hide, you won't have a problem. There's a lot of truth to that. But anyways, folks, I'm almost out of time again. That's the show for this week. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Fish Bum Outfitters, Carrot Sticks Rods, Southern Yankee Baits, War Dog Lures, Northern Michigan Outfitters, Hooked on Canadian Angling, my wife, my son, all of you listeners. Ladies and gentlemen, set those hooks, keep those lines tight.